maybe people will stop. All right, I'm going to draw. All right, so don't. Here is.
Sure you can edit that.
Here is.
Mr. Tay doesn't know how to edit things on the computer.
This is where North America and South America meet. All right. Right there. So this today, if this is the Atlantic Ocean and this is the Pacific Ocean, and you're in a bucket boat, how do you get from over here to over there? Panama Canal, right?
Run.
Before that, you had to go all the way around. You pick up the boat and you run. Well, there was discussion before we had the Panama Canal built, which was early 20th century, of having it actually go through Nicaragua up here.
That's better.
Stupid.
That's better.
It's actually not stupid. It isn't.
You were wrong.
It actually has. It's a larger landmass to go over, but it's actually flatter. And theoretically, it was considered, because there were rivers and stuff, that you actually could engineer it more easily. The Panama Canal didn't dig all the land between the Pacific and the Atlantic. What it did was it dug land to get to a river that went across. They flooded the river, right? See what I'm saying? So they actually made a man-made river, and then they went to the other side. And it would be easier to do that engineering-wise, at least in the 1850s. And so Franklin Pierce in England signed something called the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty. And what this did was it formalized the relationship between the two, and do what?
How do you spell that?
Bulwer. Yeah, right? Yeah.
I can't understand.
I legitimately thought
With
it was
an A?
bull and then where.
Bulwer.
Bulwer.
Alright. What this did was neither Britain nor the United States would put a fort there. It opened up this area for the possibility of years later having a waterway going between.
Can put a fort in Nicaragua? Or
Could not put a fort in those areas. That way, neither America nor Britain would control the area. Basically, it was open for America or Britain to create a canal.
Was it
Why did
all
you
of
say
Latin
Nicaragua?
America?
But this was above Panama, not Panama yet. This is Nicaragua, yeah.
So just Nicaragua or all of like Latin
Just
America?
Nicaragua.
She's confused.
Okay, listen. Don't be confused. This area of Nicaragua was where America and Britain were concerned. Not Panama.
I thought you said that was North America.
This is Central America. Central America is part of North America.
Okay, never mind. Okay.
Okay? This area of Nicaragua in the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty, neither side promised to take it over, right, or put a fort there. Therefore, the two could actually work to create a possible waterway in the future. This ends up not working out. Britain tries to do it, and so later America ends up getting a treaty in Panama to create the canal. Essentially, we just pointed to some guns at people and said, you're going to give us this land. And we'll get to that. It's called gunboat diplomacy. Speaking of that, here is another island. Here is Japan.
It
All right.
actually does look similar to Japan.
Yeah, it's kind of like Japan. One thing with expansion, do you know you remember we talked about Oliver Perry during the War of 1812? He was a commodore who actually fought the British on the Great Lakes. Okay? Well, his brother, Matthew Perry, not of Friends fame, but of actually was an admiral. He used gunboat diplomacy. We wanted to trade with Japan. So here's what we did. We put some ships outside Japan, we pointed our guns at them and said, you're going to start trading with us now.
Hey, we talked about that, Mr. Nolan.
That's not very nice.
Yeah. So, yes.
effective though.
Yeah, hand up.
No.
Okay, so this is this. Also, we're going to talk about, well, we'll get the guests and purchase. My favorite thing, though, is the Ostend Manifesto. Ostend is with an O. Ostend Manifesto. This is also in South America. This is going to be Cuba, obviously over here, Central America over here, but this is going to be Cuba. For a long time, Southerners wanted to take Cuba over to have first slave land. Okay? Ostend is actually a Belgian city. I've actually been to Ostend. I'm only mentioning this because this is where the treaty was going to be signed. America sent Spain off offered them $120 million to buy Cuba. Okay, and this became known as the Ostend Manifesto, this attempt to buy Cuba. While I was in Ostend, I went from England over to Belgium for about 5 hours, and I had Belgian waffles, Belgian chocolate, and then I played putt-putt.
That sounds great.
I went to some bars.
Was waffle as good as the...
Yes, Belgian waffles are awesome.
What was
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing?
Right.
What was that movie?
Gunboat diplomacy.
Is that under the expansion?
Yes, all is under expansion.
Oh, okay.
Now, here's the thing about Cuba. How many states would this add to the South?
Unlimited.
They were wanting to cut it up into smaller states. So each state would have representation in Congress.
Cheating.
Yeah, in fact, oftentimes the South was considering going into Central America and taking over countries like Nicaragua and making them American because they wanted more representation in Congress. Yes.
So it was Austin, Oxford.
Austin was just the city where they did this.
Okay, so
It was between, does anyone know who owned Cuba?
Spain.
Spain did. This was between Spain and the United States. But what ended up happening was the news was leaked and the North got really pissed about it and it ended up not happening. But we offered Spain $120 million to buy Cuba.
Had it gone down, do you think they would have sold it for $120 million?
I don't know enough about it, but I bet that if it hadn't leaked out, there is a much better chance that they could have. Yeah.
What's the thing called where you just point them to
Gunboat diplomacy. All right.
That's gunboat.
All right. Now let's talk about the Gadsden Purchase. Okay. America was looking to expand out railroads. Let's just say I didn't have railroads. Yes, I do.
I've actually
You
asked
should nominate somebody to say
It's
that.
only the West.
All right.
I think Austin should be nominated instead.
There were more people at this time, by the mid-1850s, talking about possibly having a transcontinental railroad going across the United States. You with me? And there were a couple different ways. Northerners wanted to go through Chicago, which eventually it did. And if you've seen the new Lone Ranger movie, it ends up right here. The movie, my wife loved it. I thought it was kind of stupid, but it was
I didn't like it that much.
like Johnny Depp.
I haven't
Um,
seen that.
But the South wanted to go to the South, specifically going from New Orleans and going this way. The problem was this area right here was still not part of America. This area was actually part of Mexico still.
And they didn't feel like going around it.
Yeah, well, because if they went north, there was actually more desert. If they went north, it was more mountainous, and blowing all that stuff up take a longer time. So they actually, this land became known as, we bought this land actually under Franklin Pierce. The Gadsden Purchase bought, it's called the Mesilla Valley. They bought this land for $10 million so they could run a railroad through it. In the end, that was not the first transcontinental railroad, but there would be railroads go through the area. But this area was called was called the Mesilla Valley, and it was the Gadsden Purchase.
Was it a willing sale or was it kind of...
Yeah. No, we didn't shoot at them. And this is going to lead us to talk about the Kansas-Nebraska issue, because now the North wants the terminal to go to the North. It's a lot of business. So Gadsden Purchase adds southern land in New Mexico to hopefully have, in Arizona, to hopefully have the railroad go to the south, but the North wants the railroad. So this is a big thing now. It's also economic. The Kansas-Nebraska Act issue was all over the idea of the Transcontinental Railroad. You guys have read about the Kansas-Nebraska Act, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What questions do you have so far about what we've talked about? We've got a lot done.
What's the debate of the Gadsden Purchase?
Well, should it go to the north or south? Yeah. The north wanted to go through Chicago, the south wanted to go through what we know now as the Mesilla Valley.
And it ended up going to the south?
No, it went to the
Okay.
north. That's where it the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Okie-doke. A really powerful senator, very powerful, although also very short, would not marry Cassidy, was a guy named Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas was from Illinois. In fact, he will later go up against Lincoln in a Senate runoff, and he'll beat Lincoln, but it'll make Lincoln famous and catapult him to the presidency. Stephen Douglas was the new big name, right? The big names in the North now were William Seward and Stephen Douglas. Stephen Douglas was from Chicago. Where do you think he wanted the Transcontinental Railroad to go through? Chi-town. You were sitting on that, just waiting for it. Yeah, I saw that. Well, I set that out for you. Big
I have street
softball.
cred too.
Do what?
I have street cred too.
You definitely have street cred. You and I definitely look like we grew up in the street.
Street credit. That's the cool thing. Street credit.
This area,
Credit.
the Nebraska Territory, was obviously north of the 3630 line. Savvy?
Yep.
So therefore, it should be what?
Free.
Type of land?
Free.
Free. But Stephen Douglas wanted the Southern voters to go along with him. He wanted the Transcontinental Railroad to go through the north. Southerners wanted to go through the Gadsden Purchase area. Well, what's one way to convince the Southerners to allow it to go through Chicago?
Give them a slave state.
Offer them something that they hadn't thought of before.
For our afternoon announcements from Ms.
Seems early.
Wells and Ms. Craig, there will be JV cheer practice tomorrow, Thursday,
What's the
October
time?
31st, from 3:30 to 5.
On the...
Congratulations to the following students who received
11:49.
All-State Chorus:
Let it go.
Hayden
No.
Wright,
Let it go.
Devin
They're gonna announce all the
Humphrey,
people in all.
Justin Johnson, Hunter New, Tyler
There's not that many.
Kevin Delivery, Michaela Gamble, Taylor Payton, Rael McKenna Lewis, and Tess Taylor. Congratulations.
It's a lot of all
From
states
Mr.
lottery.
Beamer, we
11
have
people
today's
made it.
meeting
It's been a
and
long
postponed until
Usually
tomorrow.
like
Please come to Coach Beamer's room immediately after school tomorrow. Attention seniors. Your next New York City payment is due Friday, November 15th. Beat the rush and turn yours in today. Also, seniors, stop by the media center to pick up cap and gown information and order forms. Bound 4 will be here November 6th during 3rd to pick up orders. That's it for afternoon announcements. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
All right. What did Stephen Douglas offer the South?
Kansas and Nebraska.
Kansas.
The Nebraska Territory will be divided into two states, Kansas and Nebraska, and that both of them would choose the slave issue based on popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is often associated with Stephen Douglas over this issue. Lewis Cass sort of is the one who brought it around. But this issue, theoretically, is going to have Nebraska be a free state, and Kansas, one below it, would be a slave state.
What's Nebraska called? Or what's the territory called?
The Nebraska Territory. This will basically be the opening salvo for us moving towards the Civil War. In fact, it is the Kansas-Nebraska Act that is the foundation for the Republican Party forming. What a reaction, Taylor.
All I see outside of my eyes is stuff like this every 5 minutes.
It's going to be really interesting because you guys are way more chatty and like conversational than first block. I'm not sure how Taylor's going to be accepted in the first block with the fist pumps and feet gyrations and whatnot.
Does anybody sit here?
I will be accepted with open arms and there's no supposed to be.
Madison Garrett's
I
sister.
guarantee you.
Probably Boston was the first here, so somebody has to.
Okay. So, what is the northern reaction to this, do you think,
They were
going to be?
very angry about it.
Not that upset because they did both free.
The Northerners said, you know what? This seems to be a giant violation of the Missouri Compromise, which we hold to be absolute biblical stone that nothing goes above the 3630 line, and now it's a Northerner who's doing this.
So I was right. They were angry.
Southerners were like, man, this is a really good idea. Where has this been all of our life? Southerners supported it, and it was passed. So now you have a giant line drawn, not in the sand, but more like in the prairie, between the Kansas-Nebraska states. Now both of them, actually Kansas will never actually become a slave state, and we'll get to that tomorrow. It is wildly important though, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and it will be the formation of the Republican Party.
So they were, the two
Can you hit
could
the thing, please?
choose their own based on popular authority, and that was